And you said somebody found you straight from Google, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, today somebody I almost gave her a hug. I was really excited that somebody finally found me.
This is Brent Richardson, and welcome to the Business Minutia Podcast, where our focus is on the details of business that are often passed over by traditional classes and leadership training. We focus on the stories of real people who have tried, failed, and learned through their experiences and are willing to share their lessons with others. Jamie, tell us about Just In Case.
Oh, that's a funny story. So there was a couple that was expecting a baby girl, and they painted their rooms pink. They took care of all the dresses, and everything was good to go. And they kept saying they needed to have a boy's name just in case. And dadgum if they didn't have a boy and named him Justin.
And used just in case. Probably,
Case.
maybe you've heard that story before. That's a pretty crazy example of the significance of a name and learning to not paint your room and count your chickens before they're hatched.
Right.
You know, at the same time, I'm not a fan of painting the room like yellow or something. I think we went with white or generic on the one case where we didn't know.
Right.
But in general, if you know, you're going to try to get it. But it happens. It happens. These are learnings that can happen when it comes to naming. We say this because we had our good friend Brett Boyd on for round 2 of discussion on his journey to small business for the first time, coming and working for himself for the first time. And how does this apply?
And he starts this interview with a naming nightmare.
Yeah, out with a bang. If you want to hear a lesson learned from someone in their first 3 months of owning a small business and what not to do, enjoy. I had so much demand for this because I'm serious. Like people pinging me, hey, when's Brett coming on again? When do we get to hear Brett's story and what's going on? So the first time we got together was the day of you kicking your business off.
The day of. Yes.
So this is our kind of refresh checkpoint to see how things have been going. And the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is tell us about the LLC Chaos. In the first week or so on the job of the new business, what went down?
Well, I was really paralyzed by getting the LLC, first of all, and not knowing what to do. So I just figured, hey, I'm going to just go to a lawyer that does this as a profession, as well as other things. But was told that I could not use the name that I was using because there's another company that had 3/4 of that name. And I said, well, then let's not do that. He didn't advise it. And
even though you'd been operating with that name for
even though
quite
I'd
some
been
time,
operating for that name.
But not in an official capacity. Through
and this
LLC.
other company had just gotten their LLC before I did.
Yeah.
And so charged this guy with, hey, get it. He said the company that I wanted to use was okay. And so I said, well, let's do it. Paid him, did that whole 9 yards. With doing my DBA as my integrity garage door and gate. So, but I was very emphatic about the company name being Integrity. And they spelt it incorrectly. Well, they spelt it with an E. And so I did not notice that. And then I got some random email to Integrity Services. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, that's not how I spelt my name. This must be just
some other garbage.
Must be, yeah, this must
Right.
be some spam or some, because I get tons of calls now and people wanting my business or whatever. And so I called him and I was like, hey, this is spelt wrong. He goes, yeah, you spelled it with an E, right? And I'm like,
No,
not
at all.
I don't. I
Not
spell
at
it with
all.
an I.
right.
And he's like, oh. And so I kind of thought that it would be normal just to spell it with an I. And so we had to go through a whole process. They had to resubmit it to like the Secretary of State to get it redone.
Literally. That's not a joke.
Yeah, literally. And so,
Act of Congress to get this.
It is. And then literally today is the day that I finally got the DBA back.
Wow.
Going, hey, here's your official certificate.
So you're a month in having to change the name of your business.
Yeah, it's been
that you've really been operating with, on the side. This was your side hustle for years.
Right. Had a lot of advertising, had a lot of my stickers, shirts, luckily, I had been waiting. I'm doing some advertising on my truck. I'd actually been waiting to pull the trigger on that prior to this, because if he came back and said, hey, none of this is possible. I'd probably be going, hey, can I have my money back? I'm going somewhere else.
So note to self, a small business entrepreneur out there that's about to kick something off, make sure you get that LLC put into place. Now, we were talking previously about LLC versus Escort. We actually had a lawyer on the podcast.
Okay.
That's out. That episode actually is out this week, so you can go ping that. But I think our counsel to focus on the LLC was definitely the right way to go, and I think she confirmed that as well.
I felt like it was, and the minimal research that I knew to do. I felt that was the direction for me to go, and then I can change it later on as I grow if need be.
That's right. If people have more questions about that, you can go reference that episode last week. I also wanted to chat. We were texting, I guess a couple months ago. I was actually in Montana with some mutual friends that we have, and I think you were off on a hike someplace, and a friend of ours and I were together talking about how nice must it be for you to be out there hiking, which I know we both are avid hikers. I was hiking actually the day before you were.
Okay.
And in Montana. And how awesome would it be? It's your first time to really trek off with no boss to report to.
It was absolutely amazing. Other than just worrying about, hey, I'm in the middle of Colorado.
Right.
I can't get my phone calls, but you know what? I don't think I missed a job. I think everybody was willing to wait, or it wasn't an emergency.
Sure.
But it just I didn't have to worry. I honestly enjoyed every bit of it, and we were hiking a 14er, compadre.
Something you wanted to do for a while.
Something I want to do for a while, and these guys kept getting to go literally every single year, and they're guys that I'd been at church with or whatever, and we're all kind of scattered out. And literally, I can count probably four years now that they've gone, and I'm like, I just can't get away. I can't go. I've got this scheduled with the family or this, and that still will happen from time to time.
Sure,
but it was amazing.
How awesome to be able to do that, right? To be able to cut free and say, hey, you're the boss. You make the schedule.
It was awesome. My wife didn't. I don't know if she thought it was awesome as she was stuck at home, but I thought it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Does it make you want to do more travel, want to do more things like that?
It does. I don't know how much my style of business will constrict that, having to be kind of tied to a phone, but as I grow, I will be able to leave it in hands of somebody at home that can answer those questions for customers so that we can adequately take care of and serve them. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So maybe let listeners know how business has been. You're what are we, 2-3 months into this?
It was the end of July, I believe.
Okay. A little more than that then. Yeah.
When I kicked off.
Yeah.
And I've been busy every single day. I kind of joked before, I've been busy. I don't know that I'm making money every day, but I've been busy.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I'm preparing every day for the next day, and I seem to have the work. It's a lot of word of mouth, some social media stuff, but even with all the COVID stuff going on, people are still spending money. People are still fixing their garages or their gates, and
you're staying busy.
And I'm staying busy.
Yeah.
I'm staying busy. There's, I work every day at least until 5, and I usually start around 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But I usually don't take lunch. I mean, I'm just steadily going.
Yeah. Which is, I think, your style too. That's kind of, you're a high bandwidth person that can.
It is my style. Yeah. I need to stay busy. But I also need to see jobs get done. I get really bogged down when like I've got a job right now where we are doing literally the entire gate. Like, we are prefabbing the gate. It literally is tearing out the old system and putting in a new, even though their old system is maybe a year old. But hey, it's their money. They can do what they want with it. As long as you pay me.
Right.
And so this has been dragging on a while, but it's getting done. Do I wish it was done tomorrow? Do I wish it was out of powder coating tomorrow? Yes, I do. Does it leave for powder coating on Friday? Finally, yes. So that I can go back and do the electronic portion of it. But,
yeah. It seems like every time I've pinged you or had communication, we've talked, you were busy then too. You were going from one job to the next, or on a ladder, or doing something. So every time I think that's good. I mean, I know originally when we first talked, even off the air, we were like, well, let's see how business rolls, because you really didn't know. I mean, you did know in a sense. You've been doing it for a long time, so you knew a little bit of how much was there. But then you had to go fill the gaps in your time.
Right. I'm pretty good, and I was even discussing this with my wife. I'm pretty good about grouping things together in certain areas to make the most bang for my buck in that area. So I'm not going from Royce City over to Fort Worth back to McKinney.
Right.
You know, sometimes that happens. It's just the nature of the beast.
Sure.
But I think for the most part, I've been able to stay busy, be able to be on top of things, not let it get out of hand. There are a few times where I am overbooking, and you feel the stress just because I don't want people to not get taken care of.
Sure.
And sometimes I am afraid of other businesses that the business will leave, or that customer honestly will get taken advantage of. That is a big fear. It actually makes me fairly angry, when I hear some of the things that people end up paying for things that are not market.
Price gouging and craziness.
Yes, price gouging.
Yeah, so it's good to be busy, but talk to me a little bit about, so we'll get into some of the challenges that you're dealing with. Maybe I want to come back to the overbooking thing, but one of the things we talked about at the end of the last episode we were discussing was around advertising and marketing. So tell us a little bit about your journey there.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. It's still a little bit of a struggle because I don't understand everything, but I've stuck to really social media. I'm not putting a lot of advertising dollars out into the advertising world just because it's not there. So I'm doing somewhat local in my area because that's where I'm really trying to build up more business. I mean, if you could travel 5 miles and do work or 50 miles and do work and make the same amount, I think everybody would go, I'd rather drive my 5 miles.
Sure.
But I do kind of get all over the Metroplex, but it's been a little bit of a struggle just figuring out, things, how to advertise, what is the most bang for my buck. I've recently done a campaign that comes out in my local area in October just to test the waters. I think you and I briefly discussed that and go, well, see what it does. If it works and you sell a door off of it, then it probably paid for it. If you don't, then at least your name is out in the community.
Sure.
And that's one thing that I am trying to do because I need to be able to look at, somebody across the street, at the local parade and go, hey, I did their garage door, and them not be looking at me going, man, I hate that person. He did the worst job in the world. Told somebody that this morning, but it's just, most of mine is social media, word of mouth. And what I'm hearing from customers is it really is about word of mouth. They're willing to trust their neighbor or their family member about the work that we did for them.
Right.
And the integrity that we took, the honesty that we were there with them, the options that we gave them. There are people that are going to basically hunt for the price and shop it. I get it. I shop things too, but hopefully they come back and go, I think we get a quality job done with Brett and his team at Integrity.
Sure, and it depends on the kind of work you're talking about doing. Some people don't have time to go chase down a bunch of quotes for something like that. It's just, I need my door fixed.
Yeah,
right? And
sometimes it is. I mean, if it's an emergency, it's just get it fixed. If it's a design aspect that they can see on our Instagram, Facebook, then I get that.
Yeah.
We may not have the look that they're going for.
For sure. Talk to me a little bit about the social media advertising that you've done and what effectiveness have you observed so far, or is it still in the early phases where you're like, it's hard to tell?
I think it's hard to tell. I mean, I get some of the analytics and the feedback of, green up arrows, people are looking, down arrows. I do, when I am posting, I do try to post at specific times, maybe in the evening when I think people are winding down and they're going to sit there and go into La La Land and just scroll. But I won't say that I've seen a whole lot of income or residual coming in off of that I could go, okay, well, we got this and this job. I mean, if anything, the only job that I can think of was like a $65 job in Keller, and the parts cost me half of that. But I was more just going, hey, you're close to me. I'm going to get you taken care of because somebody wanted to charge you
Craziness.
$300 for the same thing.
Sure.
I probably should have charged more, but
yeah.
Then again.
But you're playing the long game here too, right?
It is the
like
long
said,
game.
You want to be the community person.
And that person will call me back.
Exactly.
You know, I mean,
exactly.
If anything, that was just the thing that they needed to go, hey, I can trust this guy. He's not going to take advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that social media marketing is awesome in the sense that you can really laser focus. It allows you to really target in on your audience that you're after. The fall through in terms of the return on that investment, and the investment's quite low. The reality is there's no place you're going to be able to advertise as cheaply as you can through, your Facebooks and Instagrams and things like that. But at the same time, the return is still kind of questionable to me. It's like, I'm not sure. It certainly does something from a branding perspective to get your name out there, which in the long game, I think that's a good thing.
And that's been my focus, is steadily being in front of them. I think I need to be a little more consistent about it, but steadily being in front that, hey, this guy's out here. He's in the area.
Yeah, because it's not the kind of service you offer is not the kind of thing where we're like, hey, we're going to need some garage door work done next year. Let's start planning now and scout out. That's not, that conversation doesn't happen.
Right. I've had a few of those. I've had a few
for gates. I could see.
I have a few that are on the. I mean, I can think of 3 customers right now that I've either gotten samples to. One have worked really hard, but gotten samples to, different flyers, whatever it is that are scouting out for what they're going to do.
Gotcha.
Haven't seen any of that come through yet, but seeing what, they figure out what they want to do, what goes with the scheme of their house.
We were talking earlier, before we were recording about in addition to social media marketing, reviews are a big item, right?
Yes.
And so the more you can zero in those spaces, and so you're starting to see the reviews come in, and we were actually talking about how do you go engage people and get people to provide a review, which is a little bit of a psychological game. Is the challenge is people are so busy that going through and doing that takes some time. But I'll tell you, if you're out there listening, putting a review out on somebody that's provided you service is a great way to boost their business. Yes. It has a huge effect. So anybody listening, if you've got businesses that you frequent, you should be going out there and putting some reviews. And then the question I had for you is, where do you value that the most? Because you've got places like Yelp, you've got Google and things. What's the thing you're seeing the most impact?
Probably Yelp. Probably Google.
Yeah.
And probably Facebook. Yelp, if you don't actively, from what I found out, if you don't actively pay advertising with them, or you don't get that customer off Yelp, if they didn't find you on there and leave a review, because I had 5 reviews that customers gave me. I was like, hey, can you go to Yelp or Google? And Yelp is just what they chose, but Yelp took all those all away because they didn't use them. That's just what they chose to give me the review on. But on Google, that's where, and I have gotten some cards that are double-sided, Facebook and Google. People can just scan the QR code and it takes them right to it, because there was a little bit of a learning curve when you email them a review, because I will follow up. Hey, thank you for your business. We appreciate being able to serve your family. And by the way, here's a review if you don't mind. And, maybe 1 out of 10 are doing it. Yeah. But if I can give them a card, because I'm out of sight, out of mind once they go back in the house and I'm driving off.
That's right.
But if I give them a card, maybe they're setting it on their counter. Yeah. When the mom's winding down for the night, she goes, oh, I forgot about that. Let me just scan it real quick. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. And for me, this is, I see the value in it. I know it's helpful. If I don't do it right then in front of you, the chances of it happening is unlikely. So that's where we are kind of brainstorming, like, how can we do that? And so now I've also had cases where I've been traveling and used a tour company through Tripadvisor, which is, somewhat sketchy by itself, but it worked out. It was a really good tour. But there was this moment where it was like a trade of, we have this really cool dessert you're going to like. Once you leave us a Tripadvisor, 5-star review, we'd be glad to give it to you. Like, is it really giving? This feels like the sleazy trade, right?
Was the dessert good? That's the question.
Do you want to write the review for me? Because it seems like that's what you're trying to do, right? And if you've ever bought a new car, it's the same way. We expect 5 stars on everything. Can we count on you to get 5 stars on everything when you get that survey? Oh, good grief! What's the point of sending a survey if you don't want honest feedback? This is a stupid game, right? So, I struggle with how to go do that, but it does seem like, incentivizing in some way to let people know, hey, if you'll take the time to do this, would be an interesting thing.
And are all 5-star reviews good? I mean, that is a thought pattern to me. It goes, all my are 5-star reviews. Yeah. Can I get a 3? Can I get somebody going, well, you could have been more, thorough here, Brett, or here, but.
And a 3 sometimes is good. Because you're like, And what's funny is I've seen people with, there's a friend from work that had a YouTube video put out of him talking about a product and a specific service associated with work. I thought, that's cool. Look at this guy. He's famous. It's on YouTube. This guy, and I'm looking down at the comments, and somebody's like, really glaring, great comment, but it had a kind of strange feel about it. And then I looked and it was his mom. So like, all right, well, the credibility comes in as a part of is kind of a challenge too, which is something else. When you look at reviews, where I'll go for reviews has changed. I would use Yelp in the past for reviews. I don't really use it so much anymore because I can get the same content from Google, whereas in the past, I would go to Google and there'd be like 2 reviews, and that's probably the guy's mom and his cousin. So I don't know that I'm really getting. But in your case, you're starting to get some numbers in there that really.
I'm starting to get some numbers. They're not as high as I would like. I would love to be able to, have 50, 100, 200 or something. And you do see those companies advertising those. They are some larger companies, but they also advertise in cities that they play a marketing game.
Sure.
Where they're advertising and that there's nobody in that city. I know that there's a company in my own city right now, and they literally have bought space on a bulletin board.
Yeah. So I bring it up to say, people listening to the episode, if you have ideas on how to do this in such a way that it's not some incestuous loop, because that's how social media can feel at times. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing, which maybe that's the way the game should be played, but it seems like there'd be an alternative way to do it, and I'd be interested. People, how to get a hold of us and let us know your feedback.
And I'd love to know too, just throwing this out there, do people like videos? Do they like to see, hey, this is the advertising, or this is what we're marketing this month, or we're specializing at this time?
I think it depends.
Video-wise, I haven't done any videos like that. I've seen some people do some, but
I think I could imagine it would depend for me. For garage door stuff, I don't know how much I'd care. For gate, yeah, I think that would be interesting because that's a little bit different kind of investment for me. And I'm my door. And you might tell me that's not correct. That people do care about the artistry of their door as much as you would a gate. I would really care about that. Whereas the door, I'd be like, functionality's fine.
Yeah, some people do. Some people, it's just, hey, I merely want it to go up and down. It depends on what they do in their garage.
But
and there can be large investments in the gate, and that is. Whether I'm competing with Mighty Mule brand from a Tractor Supply, which I don't sell on purpose, or I'm
is that because it's
giving
garbage?
A pro model. It's just mostly made out of plastic. There's it goes bad. You chunk it,
sure.
and probably 5 of the gates down the street, have those hanging off their gates, and those are the guys that I do the drive-bys and put my card on there.
When it breaks, give me a call.
And I've had one of those turn up. I was excited the other day. She's like, I got your card off my mailbox. And I'm like, I didn't go in your mailbox.
Yeah.
I just got your card off of it.
And you said somebody found you straight from Google, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, today somebody I almost gave her a hug. I was really excited that somebody finally found me on Google.
It is kind of funny to get. I could relate to that because I've had tons of podcast listeners just pop up out of nowhere in Ohio. I don't know anybody in Ohio. That's pretty cool. Where did that come from? That's kind of neat to see something working.
Yeah, it was just exciting that they were in my own city.
Yeah.
And it looks like there may be more work involved in it. So.
Very cool, very cool. So let's get back to that overbooking item. So you're busy. You're staying busy. What is the effect of that in terms of overbooking?
The overbooking part is just my desire to get everybody fixed up and feel. I like to have my slate wiped at the end of the day, going, "Whew, I'm done." Yeah. I got everybody. I got everything I wanted to accomplish today. reality, that doesn't always happen. But yesterday, for example, I had multiple calls coming in, and I kind of felt like, man, I'm on this big project. I got this big rock here that I'm taking care of. How do I get these little ones spaced around it without putting people off? Because certain issues, a broken spring, you might be stuck in your garage. You're like, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I totally get that, but I was able to get to them and taken care of today, and they were okay with that. But that's because they could get their garage door up. Sometimes you're stuck in your garage and you need to get something immediate. And I just have this thing where I don't want people to be disappointed, and I don't want them to get taken advantage of.
Sure. When you're in a phase of the early part of your business that you want to invest in and support as much as you can.
Yes, I want to be in front of them. I want to build.
You're building your brand.
I want to build that base. I want to build that brand. I want to, whether it's Fort Worth or Dallas or, Tarrant County, Dallas County. I want to be a part in front of them as much as possible.
Sure. And
know that they can trust me to call me back.
And then does it get to a point where you're like, all right, that's enough. I have to guard my time a little more carefully? Do you feel like you're working crazy hours compared to what you were doing before? That's what I would imagine people would be thinking out there listening.
I'm working a little bit more than I was before. I'm not getting home consistently as late. But I know, talking with my wife, she's like, well, I really thought you would be home, and I'm trying to throw 3 more calls. I'm like, well, I'm in Denton. I've got 3 more calls.
And you're like, it's the boss. He's such a jerk.
Yeah, he just keeps going and going. He says I can't come home until I finish.
Yeah.
Last night I felt like it was the old days. I had my headlamp on, headlight, and I'm fixing a gate, and it's dark, and I was like, I can't be doing this.
Yeah.
But that customer had also been very generous to me and waited over the weekend.
Sure.
And so I felt like I had to get him taken care of it, no matter what cost.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can relate, especially the phase you're in. Yeah. That would be the thing I'd want to do as well. I'd be in the same. It's easy for me to sit here and say, you got to protect your time, Brett, and you got to be. But the reality is, when you're right there and you're getting this thing rolling by yourself, and it's all you.
It's all you.
It's
all me. Nobody else is helping.
And you're telling me a couple more hours would have this customer extremely satisfied. Now, if we could get that extremely satisfied customer to leave some stinking reviews,
exactly.
Now we're starting to get some traction, right? So
I don't think he left a review, but
gosh, all right, we got to come up with a solution to that.
Yeah, we got to figure out some reviews.
Come up with it. We were brainstorming a few. I won't talk about here, but I want people to give us feedback. So we'll use the network here for some ideas. What about some of the other challenges that you're up against? We talked a little bit about on the financial side in terms of just payroll.
Yeah, it's just, I'm the only one on payroll, but it's figuring out when to pay myself, how to pay myself, how much to pay myself. Yeah. I mean, I know that what I was going off of was kind of like what I was making originally with my full-time and part-time job. Yeah. That's the direction, but I've kind of just, as I have the money come in, I just kind of stick it back in an account. And then if I need to use it, I use it. That's my safe, conservative way of doing it every single month. After I pay my bills, whether it be advertising, vehicle, so on and so on. And so it's just learning, getting on a rhythm and a schedule, and honestly finding out, okay, well, since I've just done the LLC, I'm actually at the point where I can switch the accounts that I've been using as my business accounts over to something that says my legitimate LLC name, Integrity Service Group.
Yeah.
And then do I need to write myself a check? Is that more clean? Can I just do an online transfer? That's so much easier.
Yeah.
And I do label things now when I do online transfer to myself, from that business account to my personal account. I do put, IGG pay so that I know that that's what that was for.
Yeah.
Or transfer taxes or
right,
whatever I'm doing. But it's just figuring out, hey, do I want to get paid once a month? Do I just want to do it? I know guys that did it every single week. They sat down at the end of the week. They wrote themselves a check. I don't know. That just seems like a lot of extra work and paper that I could just transfer it over. But
sure,
want to do it what way is simple as to show this is what I paid myself at the end of the year.
Yeah, and it seems like it's really a matter of finding the right cadence of a lot of things, right? What's the cadence of review, making of this type of thing? And you could say, well, you could just leave it like that. But what if this thing scales and you go to 3-4 people that are somebody working on the doors while you're working on gates? You're going to need a solution for that too. So having a good cadence does make sense.
Yeah, and when I'm not on site with those other people, and there goes a whole another level of trust in that in our business.
Sure. And you may choose to not do that because scaling comes with some other pains. And,
yes,
and trying to duplicate yourself and people's behavior. You're working with a team at that point. People's behavior starts to come in, and they're not just like you. So that'll be a fun experience.
And that is the difficulty when guys start out by themselves. Usually they're starting out because they want to do things like they want to do them.
Sure.
They expect the job to be done with a certain amount of integrity and thoroughness.
Sure.
And detailed oriented.
Right.
And, my wife has a different idea of cleaning than I have a different idea of cleaning. Even though we're both OCD in those areas, we still have some different opinions.
Absolutely. Clean will definitely mean different things to different people, especially the teenagers.
Yes,
It's a different meaning altogether. So we also talked a little bit about this, as you've started to scaling finances has also created some challenges. You've been using an app in the past for invoicing, and you're thinking about making a switch over to QuickBooks.
We've been using Invoice to Go, which I think is a great app. It's super easy to work off of, whether you're on your phone, whether you're an iPad, which I predominantly operate off of 90% of or 100% of the time during the day, because I can give a customer boom, boom, boom. Here's your invoice. I've emailed it to you, or I go back home and print it off. But I just don't know that it's doing what I need to on the back end as far as the accounting and the taxes. I think that there are some features of it, but what my goal is as I start to scale that is shooting for January to have a fresh, clean start. Is going to probably switch over to QuickBooks. It's a little pricier, but QuickBooks Online will do some stuff that I can send directly to my accountant. I can pay my taxes that way, or it helps me tell me what my taxes are per my sales and actually per my actual income, not just my sales. And that way I have a better hold on it. I think right now I'm kind of doing double work by the time I put some stuff in an Excel file and then I go and have those invoices already done through Invoice to Go.
Sure.
It's a great, I think, for a part-time or a super small or, business. But once you start scaling up, you need to get a little more detailed. And I've just given myself a deadline. All right, by January 1, you got to figure out what's going on with QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Or find someone to help you learn what's going on with QuickBooks.
Right.
Because I really want to be detailed about it. Sure. I really want to know every cent that I'm making. I know that that's impossible when you have certain things on a job that you're not really accounting for, but I want to know what I'm making and what's going in and what's coming out a little better.
Yeah, you own it, so you want to have visibility to what's going on and where things are moving around. And then the other item I wanted to talk a little bit about in terms of some of the challenges that you're facing is talk to me about medical insurance.
Medical insurance. I don't have any. My medical insurance previously wasn't the greatest, but there's some medical share programs out there that I've been looking into. We actually used those for my children for a while, where they pay the 100%. But there's also the aspect of what we use for my wife that actually can have her on, and found out that there is a tax benefit to it, because if we're on the same one, yes, it is more expensive, but I supposedly can write all that off at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Even with my wife being on it. So we're looking down that path of it. It's because reality is, yesterday I was standing on the top of a 12-foot ladder. Do I do that every day? No. Do I want to? No. But yes, if I would have fail, it could have been a pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
It was concrete below me.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been, some of the things that I do have an opportunity for elbow problems, shoulder problems, which actually my elbows, I am experiencing some tendonitis in my elbows right now. Just wish I could get a shot, but hey, I just struggle through it every day.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if I'm using a certain tool, then I won't have to do that. it'll be easier on my body. But I'm kind of living on a little bit on the wild side right now. And I don't know 100%, I guess, but at the end of the year, when you do your taxes, you're supposed to show that you've had insurance or something goes up that I was told. Not really sure what that is.
Yeah.
But
So that's definitely a problem that needs to be solved. Something that
definitely a problem that I've got to solve. And it's kind of just slowing down enough to do it. The illustration I've been given is, hey, I just jumped in the fast flowing river and I've just pointed my feet downstream, and it hasn't slowed up enough to think about some things, but you do have to pull that time back and think about it. So
yeah, and carving some time out to think about those things. We just had someone last week on a podcast, and I've actually had two interviewers, or two people I've interviewed that have said the same thing, where you want to be working on your business and not in your business. And I never connected the dots with this reactive versus proactive mindset. But ultimately, if you're doing a reactive work queue all the time and you're running at 100%, there's no bandwidth for you to work on your business. You're constantly in.
Right.
So finding some time that you carve out to go like, all right, I need to think about this and have some space to develop strategy or whatever that. And I think everybody's different in terms of how they do that. I do that on a mountain bike. Yeah. But that's, my brain can think about that for whatever reason. You talk about the big rocks and the small rocks. Right. My brain has a little bit of room there for that kind of thought process.
I seem to get
squeeze in
blurps in the middle of the day, and I just got to get better about writing those down. I mean, I do. I carry my iPad with me constantly, but I've got to get better about, okay, I need to write that down.
Sure.
I need to focus on that tonight, or I need to take this weekend. And a couple weekends, my wife and I are going away to Oklahoma for the weekend with my dad. I need to take some time just to pull away and go. Sure. I've had that I need a 5-year plan written down on my iPad for, several months. I just need to do it.
I was going to say 5 years.
No, 5 years.
Yeah, I wonder too, though, if just articulating it, just saying, vocalizing it also does something. It does for me, at least. And when I start to vocalize, I even had today where I had a presentation I was working through, and it was very technical, but I drug Jamie in, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to pitch this to you. And she didn't know any of the stuff I'm talking about, but me talking through it, I caught myself. I go, yeah, that won't work. And I modified my pitch as I went. So I think something about vocalizing things.
I've done the same thing. I mean, I've set up a home office, have my wife come in, sit on the couch, and I'm doing stuff, and I'll just start, and she has no idea what I'm talking about, other than one day I would like her to have an idea what I'm talking about, and she could take some of that over. But it's just talking to her about it so that I can verbalize it, and I can get it off my chest or off my mind. Yeah. And, and then it's, she's very good about going, well, why don't you do this, or why don't you think about this way?
Right. Well, those that they bring a fresh perspective, because sometimes we're so close that we don't see the forest for the trees, and having somebody that can challenge us, I find it very helpful. I'm talking about really prepping for presentations, but it really could be anything. Bouncing somebody that has an outside perspective on things will make you go, I don't know. I guess why am I doing it like that? I don't know. It's a good question, and it forces your brain to kind of reset.
Well, I said when we first did this podcast that this is a journey. I want to enjoy the journey, and I do. I want to see the forest, because that's what speaks to me. Yeah. I don't want to see just the trees. Sure. Are rocks better than trees? I mean, I know people have said, I like rocks, I like trees. I like them both. I want to enjoy this whole journey. But if I'm so focused on getting the work done, which I can be that way, sure. I can be just hyper focused, because I do operate at, I guess, a higher bandwidth, and I get almost a buzz off of, all right, got that one taken care of. I mean, sure. The way I design my intake form, when people are calling me, if you were to call me, I'm going to write your name, address, phone number, down, and a little bit about the job. I love to be able to cross you off. Yeah. In red, just at the end of the job, boom, you're done. Give me another one. You get a
little dopamine hit.
I do. I get a little hit because, I worked on a bridge crew one time. I hated it. I didn't see anything getting done. I'm like, these roads are not getting built here. Yeah. And that's pretty evident, in our Dallas Metroplex. our highways are always at work. I want to see it get done.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think in the corporate world, it's clearing your inbox or finishing a presentation or something like that. But anything, I get the same from cutting the grass. Like once it's done, you're like, yes, I've done this. I made an end table this past weekend out of reclaimed wood that was just sitting around the property, sitting on the weather, and I buffed it back down and was able to turn it into a little end table. When you're done, you're like, yes, I have made this.
Longer projects are harder. I mean, and I do have a few of those that do take time to get built.
Right.
You know?
And my point was like stopping and developing strategy.
Yeah.
You don't get the same feel. You don't get that reward immediate, like I need to develop this strategy. But at the same time, most of the successes that I've had have been where I thought through and planned through and developed a strategy and then ran with that. Right. Otherwise, you just spin your wheels. Yeah.
And it is hard because I am a planner. I am a planner. I enjoy that process, but it's making myself stop. It's making myself go, okay, you can't take calls until 10 o'clock because you need to think about this, or you need to come up with the best best option for this person's project.
Absolutely.
Because usually they're higher dollar projects, whether it's a custom door or a custom gate. Yeah. And some people don't realize how much those actually do cost.
Yeah. I'm excited for you, man. It's pretty awesome to see you get going and stay busy and be successful. I joked with you when we were talking earlier. I said you were talking about buying, or somebody was trying to sell you something. I said, I hope it's a new bass boat. And you kind of laughed. I said, you wait.
Love to have a new bass boat.
Let's see who gets
new
one
bike,
first.
but new bass boat.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. All right. So you're your first quarter in, really, in terms of this. What would you do different?
I would have started sooner. I would have started sooner.
And created your LLC.
I would have created my LLC earlier. Yes. And the problem is I thought about it, but it was that paralyzing. I don't know what to do. That is not anything I know about. I can't fix that with a wrench.
Right.
So yeah, I would have started sooner. That if I have a regret, it's like, why didn't you start sooner? Why didn't you just listen to your inner guy?
Awesome.
And get it done.
That's fantastic, man. Well, thanks for the catch up. It's good.
Thank you.
We'll see you again in a quarter when you're blowing and going and rolling and talking about hiring people.
Sounds good.
And I'll be after a job. I don't know if I'll be any good at what you do, but I might be worth a shot.
We'll give you a shot.
All right.
If you have some ideas on how Brett can get some more reviews, anything creative, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, sync up with us, ping us on our website and on social media, and give us some thoughts and ideas. What are the ways that you would say, okay, I would be willing to give a review you're not asking something from me that makes it feel sleazy, right? What ideas do you have as a consumer that you'd be like, yeah, I'm okay with that. That's a good trade, and I'm gonna go ahead and enter that review. How do we make it easier for people? That's the question. Let us know.
Look forward to hearing from you.
Have a good week, folks.